Pat Lopez, where we talk everything real estate. For this show, I'm going to go over the top takeaways from 2023. I had some really great guests, had some really good insights, so I want to share some of the ones that really resonated for me. The first one, I had a top producer. He was number 15 out of 500 agents for top production in Philadelphia. And he said, treat the real estate business like a business. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? He goes, you treat it like a business. You come in at 9 o'clock, you leave at 5 o'clock, or you come in at 8 and you leave at 6. So treat it like a business. He saw some really talented, really smart people, didn't really take it seriously, would come in at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and they just fizzled out. It didn't work for them. So what he said is have a schedule, have a business. So the first thing he did when he came in, he would look at the MLS. He would see what sold, if there's any price reductions, new inventory on the market. First thing he would do is educate himself to see what is going on. The second thing he would do is make phone calls. He'd always try to make 20 phone calls a day to see if he can get some appointments, talk to people to generate business. Then from there, he would turn around and he said he would call his buyers and his sellers that he's currently working with at least once a week. He goes, even if I didn't have anything to say, I would call them because, as he would say, they want to hear from me. So he would give them updates. Super important, communication. And then the last thing he said, which was pretty insightful. He turned around and he said, he had a phone call from a guy who had a home that he wanted to rent out for $1,500. Now, this is a top producer. We're talking about out of the top 500 agents in Philadelphia, he was number 15 in sales, in volume, okay? And he turned around and he went out there, spoke to the guy, and rented the place for him. And he had people in his office telling him, saying, what are you doing? You have houses listed for $750,000, $1 million. What are you doing? He goes, listen, in 5 years from now, when he's ready to sell, he's going to give me a call because I was there for him. 2, if his daughter, his son, his uncle, his brother, if they want to buy or sell, who are they going to call? They're going to call me. He goes, I never want to be bigger than the business. So he took it down to the basics. Never be too big for the business. So I thought there was some really good insights he had. Also, having conversations. I had one agent turn around. He says, listen, I look at conversations and filling up a bucket. You could have this big giant bucket, and I want to get as many conversations as humanly possible to fill that bucket up. And I want to fill it up as quickly as possible. I don't want to fill that bucket over 20 years. I want to fill that bucket up in 2-3 years, because what's going to happen is the bucket's going to get so full that it's going to start overflowing. And what that means is 6 months, a year, 3 years from now, people who he's had conversations will be ready to buy or sell. And the fact that he filled it up so much and it's just overflowing, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, he has all his referrals, all his leads are coming out of that bucket through all those conversations. And then I asked him, well, if I'm new and I'm starting, who do I talk to? How do I have these conversations? And he goes, it's real easy. If you look at your cell phone, you probably have at least 500 numbers saved on your cell phone. You go to your Facebook page, Instagram, you may have 1,000, 2,000 friends. He goes, engage people that way, but don't be a pest and don't be on them saying, hey, I'm a realtor. Do you have anything for me? Engage, build a relationship. So when little Johnny hits a home run, you respond to that saying, hey, great. I'm so excited for you. You must be so proud. Always let them know what you do, but develop a relationship. So when they're ready, once again, you're filling up that bucket. When they're ready, they're going to think of you and they're going to call you. So that was a second insight that I got that I thought was pretty smart and pretty good, especially if you're just beginning and you don't know who to talk to and who to call. The third one I had that, stuck out for me, I had this coach, a real estate coach. And he said to me, you know what? It's great. Everybody says, talk to your friends and family, let everybody know what you do. Of course, you want to do that because that's a low-hanging fruit. He goes, but you may have in between friends and family, 1,000 people or so. But if that's all you go and you don't go outside of your comfort zone, outside of your sphere, You're missing out so much. He turned around and said, you could have 1,000 people who you know, but there's 1 million people in your community that you're not talking to. So guess what? You may have to get a little bit uncomfortable, and you may have to call expireds. You may have to call FISBOs. You may have to do door knocking, circle prospecting. You need to get outside until you build up enough referrals, or as the one agent said, fill up that bucket so full that it's constantly overflowing leads, so you can stop doing that. And I thought that was pretty good as well. Now, what you want to do is constantly educate yourself. You want to be a professional. You want to set yourself, separate yourself from the competition. So listen to podcasts, go to trainings, learn as much as possible. Now, I saw this one podcast from Tom Ferry, and I thought it was brilliant what he said. And he said, when somebody comes up to you and asks you, how is the real estate market? Most people say, oh, it's great. Now, think about that. If you're at a soccer game and little Johnny's kicking the ball around, and one of his co-teammates, one of the parents, come over to you and talk to you, say, oh, you're in real estate, right? Yeah, I am. He goes, well, how's the market? Great. Well, that's not very insightful, right? And that could be the end of the conversation. You switch subjects. But imagine if somebody asks you, how's the real estate market? And you say, well, it depends. Are you planning on buying, selling, renting, or investing? Because all those markets are a little bit different. What are you doing? Are you planning on buying, selling, renting, investing? And now you have a conversation. And imagine how much smarter you sound when you give an answer like that versus, oh, the market's great. So always, always try learning. Listen to podcasts. Go to, coaching, with your broker. They have education, real estate roundtable type things. Brainstorm. You always want to learn, and you always want to be the best you can be. So those are some of the takeaways that I had, and there was a bunch more, but I just want to keep this episode a little bit shorter. But there's some really good insight that I got from some top agents out there. So I hope you enjoyed the show. That's the Real Estate Show with Pat Lopez. Now, be sure to follow the show on Facebook and Instagram and subscribe below. I have some really good guests lined up for you, so you don't want to miss them. And also leave a comment. Tell me things that you like, you don't like, but more important, tell me some topics you'd like me to cover in the future. Remember, this show is everything real estate, no limits. Hope you enjoy